Yeah, COVID got all my hair. Sorry about that. All right, let's see if I can do this. I should be able to watch you guys on my phone. I'm filming on my phone up here, so it's a little delayed on the laptop. Give a few minutes for everybody to kind of get in and settle in. I can interact with you guys via text, so thanks for chiming in. What I'm going to do here in a bit is draw Alex Rins from the 2019 COTA MotoGP race. So I'll be working on the iPad. I'll change my view here in a little bit. But just want to give people a little bit of a chance to get in and hang out inside of here. So it's good to see everybody chime in, and feel free to ask questions as I go, because I will. Otherwise, I'll be talking into the abyss, which will be kind of fun for some people, but not for others. So let's see. Hi, Kevin. My wife is with me, and she's excited to see you since she's never met you. Hey, Mark. Yeah, hopefully we can meet at the next MotoGP race, hopefully in November, if everything goes according to plan. Hopefully we get through this social distancing. Clean that iPad screen. No, it's this is all love because it goes with me everywhere I go. So I draw all my digital cartoons that you guys see that I post. I draw on the iPad Pro. It's the 2018 edition, like the newest one that's available. So I'll end up getting a new one when it's out because I love it. I'll keep this one, but everywhere I go, it travels with me. Keep it a little satchel. So. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, there's some people that have kind of chimed in. I'll keep kind of turning around and seeing what you guys have to say. But I'm going to start drawing Alex Rins. I'm going to use a program called Procreate on the iPad. So it's very similar to Photoshop, which I'm not good in, but I'm decent in Procreate just because I've been doing it for so long. Use an Apple Pencil, but again, second generation Apple Pencil. So it has some cool functions that I really love because I'm a nerd about this stuff. But because Michelle was so nice, I will go ahead and clean my iPad screen just for her because she's so kind to me. Thank you, Michelle. All right, so I'll get started. What I'm going to do is work on a sketch. I'm going to change the screen to come down and look at the screen as I draw. And I'll kind of chime in, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. So what I'm going to do now is draw Alex Rins from the 2019 Circuit of the Americas MotoGP. So let me get started. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'll look up as I go. Procreate just start a new app or start a new project. I'm going to go screen size because I know what I want to draw on this. What I usually do is I'll take my screen size, make sure that it's this one. I want to be landscape. I want him to kind of be turning into the corner. So it's going to be one of my cartoon drawings with a big head. First thing I always do, just because it's a brightness thing, is I always change my background color to kind of like a grayish, just so whenever I use pure white, I could see it turn to pure white. Because if you have a pure white background like a sheet of notebook paper, you end up getting a different feel whenever you go to do highlights because it doesn't stand up as much as you'd like. So I always kind of go and pick a color that's a little bit on the dark side of gray, but still white enough where you can see it. When I start a sketch, I always go with a color that's not going to be very prevalent in the finished drawing. So what I like to do, and this one I'll go with a darker red, so just picking up on that. I'll use I downloaded some brushes from the internet that have been really good. A guy named Jing, Jing. So if you guys use brushes, if anybody else uses Procreate, his stuff is really good for sketching and for painting, which is what I do, more so than actual the Procreate stock brushes. And for graphic design, which I don't do a lot of graphic design, I focus mostly on this type of stuff. So the way I always start off is real loose with a color that I'm not going to use a lot. So in this particular case, it's going to be red. I always start off with big circles, turn down my opacity, turn up my brush size, because I always like to go with, and of course, My Apple Pencil is not registering, so try that again. All right, try it again. All right, something is weird. Take it out of its case, maybe that'll help. Start over. That is the reason. It was on eraser, not paintbrush, so that is my fault. So again, turn the opacity down, turn the brush size up. Big general shapes. So if you guys could see, I believe you can see it okay. Big circle for the helmet. I want to get the shape of the bike going this way, so just kind of an oval for the bike. The helmet's actually going to end up being bigger than that. Hand on the handlebar, and then the big fat tire. So if you guys could see that, that's basically what I'm going for. That's how every drawing of mine starts, of what I want it to look like, the general shape, how it's going to fit on the page. I actually want to move it this way a little bit, so I'm going to use a tool that moves the whole canvas over, because I'm going to make his helmet bigger. So again, I'm just going to write who I'm doing in case anybody chimes in. It is Alex Rins from MotoGP. So I'll come back just so anybody that pops in to see that. And if you guys have questions, please let me know as I go. Okay, so just sketching here. What I want to do now is set his eye line. So I want him looking this direction into the corner. So I always draw basically a big circle, and then basically if you take a basketball and draw a circle around the basketball to set which way the head's going to be tilting and leaning, and then another circle that goes around it to tell you which way the eye line's going to be. So basically his eyes would be here, and he's looking that way. So I'm right-handed, so I always pull. It's easier for me to pull than it is to push. So I always you'll see me twist the canvas a lot with the two fingers. When I snap it, it goes to the full screen. But I am doing this to get him kind of situated on the bike. The helmet's always really important, because to me, helmets are what got me interested in motorsport. I've always liked motorsport because of the colors of the helmet, the way people wear their national pride, and the way that the art of the helmet, the warrior helmet, fits on to the rider or the driver, is always really, really fascinated me. And I think it's something that drew me to the sport way back in like 97, 98. It's just stuck with me since then. So what I'm doing now is just kind of drawing his limbs. Every time you see me draw a circle, that's a joint. So I'll draw a line for the forearm, a circle for the elbow, then a line for the bicep, so that it could just go through, and I could reorient it basically where the driver or rider is going to fall on the motorcycle, and I can move around lines and circles way easier than like fleshed out pieces. Kind of the shape of the head of the nose, where the headlight would be on a MotoGP bike, and then the front tire oval, the body of the bike, and then the rear tire oval. I always really exaggerate. The front tires are usually about the right size on a bike, proportionally to what I draw or what it is in real life. But I always make the rear tire like super fat, just because I think it's aesthetically pleasing to me when it's that way. I'm gonna have a little bit of a curb coming this way, and you guys, I don't know if you could see it fleshed out a little bit more. So you could see him leaning, head, spine, shoulders, elbow, knee. Everything's kind of leaning out of the bike. So now I know where his eyes are. I'll start fleshing this in a little bit with kind of the shape of the visor, and going around shaping the shape of the overall shape of the helmet. And a lot of times I'll darken stuff in. Sometimes it's a little bit too premature to get it darkened, but at least gives me an idea of where things are going. I have a photo of Alex Rins pulled off to the side, so I could get the details of his helmet right. and the livery of the bike right, just because if you don't do that, it's kind of hard to distinguish. But again, you see things start to flesh out. So I was like, let me see, who is this? Weird, everything is reversed. Thought I was left-handed, but it's right backwards. Sorry about that. I am using my FaceTime camera on my iPhone, so I think that's kind of the best solution that I have. If I do this again, I have a camera mounted up here that I might try again. So I'll try that again. But sorry for it being reversed. I don't really know a way around that, Kurt. But thanks for chiming in. But yes, right hand. And Roxy, you make it look deceptively simple. I don't know. It's not simple. Maybe it looks simple, but it's something that I've been working on for a long time. So it's kind of muscle memory, and I love it when my muscle memory gets activated. So I've been doing this for so long, for so many years, that I kind of have my techniques and my shortcuts and things nailed down. Hopefully, I'm always, trying to get something a little bit better. So air intake. This is the front fairing of the bike. Again, I'm just laying out very, very simple, very, very generic shapes and sizes. I always want to make sure that the rider's number is visible, so I'll block that out and get it kind of where I want things to be. The arrow fairings for the Suzuki were kind of goofy last year, but I liked it. Oh, some people might ask why I'm doing Alex Rins. Was last year was at MotoGP at Coda, watching Alex Rins. And actually, I guess this drawing is more about Mark Marquez. If you guys follow MotoGP at all, it was an amazing race. One of the coolest, most exciting experiences I've had at a race, because Mark Marquez is the king of Coda. I think he's raced there every year since 2014, something like that, and has won absolutely everything there. And the dude's just a absolute like genius on the bike. So it was really cool to see him. And Alex or Mark took the lead as expected, took pole, took the lead, and kind of just walked away with the race. And for some reason, somehow, Mark Marquez dropped the bike halfway through the race, and everybody was floored. I think if there's some people there, I think Mark was there last year in Coda, and just the excitement of the crowd is one of the things I miss most about this time of COVID that really sucks. But sport has been so important to me because of that live interaction, that way that people can be together, can commune, can you could be a Mark Marquez, not hater. I don't know if anybody's too much of a hater that I was around, but how many people can just be part of that moment that you really don't get a chance to see. On TV you could hear it, but when you're there in person, you feel it, and it's fantastic. Let's see. So KK is watching. Amber. Okay. So yeah, just because of that, I thought it was really special to be at that event to see Alex Rins do something really special. Personally, I was pulling for Rossi. I'm generally a Rossi fan. I just think he's a really good influence on the sport in general. But I would have liked to have been there to see Rossi win another race. I don't think I've ever seen him win in person, which is really odd because he's won just about everything. But I have seen Mark Marquez win everything else. Late arrival, but happy to see you go live. Go, Kevin. Thanks, Megan. I didn't realize you're left-handed. Kate, I am not left-handed. This is reversed. Sorry about that. My right hand is actually, I'll show you guys. My right hand is damaged from how much I draw and paint. So you can see that that's actually like a trapped nerve in my hand that is something I've been working on. So yeah, Brian, that's an iPad. Yeah, this is an iPad Pro 2018 edition. Basically kind of the maxed out thing, the best of the best that exists as of 2018 or 2019. Sorry, Kate, didn't mean to disappoint. Actually, yeah, I like being right-handed because it works for me. There's some other people on here that might disagree with me. So yeah, just working through some very basic details. You guys probably saw me here a minute ago. erase his visor. I always like to make sure that the visor has a bit of a shine to it, so I like to pick a hot spot on it. So just change the eraser tool and kind of open up back what I've already made dark, and then go back in and fill it in. So right now you can see I have the basics. Sorry, it's probably a little small. Have the basics of what I want to do. Yeah, Jody, actually seeing Kimi win live on my birthday at Coda is one of the biggest thrills of my life, so I get it. I'll show you, Jody, the drawing I was actually going to do. I'll switch to that. I was going to do a Kimi. I was practicing on that. I really like Kimi Räikkönen's way of how, I don't know the best way to describe it, but I'll switch up to here for a second. Kimi Räikkönen makes me laugh because he is so lazy in his body posture, which as a guy that got started as a comic book artist, as somebody that drew comic books and superheroes and all that, I was always super used to very dynamic poses, very strong hands, and very dynamic ways of the body moving, and kind of that snapshot. If anybody's into movies here, Zack Snyder is very, very good at capturing the moment that is the coolest looking moment. Yeah, Mr. Personality, exactly. Jody might fight you, Kurt, so careful. But Kimi always seems happy when he wins or whatever, but he always seems super lazy in his happiness. His hands are always kind of loose. His when he goes to flex or to pose, he never actually, the strength is always at like 80%. So I've always find it really funny whenever Kimi does something exciting, because his fans go absolutely bat crap crazy, but he seems like he could take it or leave it, which I think is what makes Kimi the guy that he is. I really appreciate how he interacts with people. So yeah, very Finnish. Although I have met some expressive Finns, Jody, and I believe you have too. So going back to this Alex Rins, my next step for this style of cartoon is to get it to a basic shape of where I want it. I'm gonna lay in a few more details of the way the number goes, the way his helmet falls, the paint lines of his helmet. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to reduce the opacity of it so I can go through and start building better lines in a different color. So I want to make sure that I got his racing stripes built up. I know that his helmet has the Monster Energy thing. If anybody here rides helmets, almost all helmets now have a arrow flip at the back of the helmet that is super useful, and you miss it when you don't have it, but when you have a tuck at the back of the helmet, really makes things go better, so your head doesn't try to, your head doesn't try to lift off your shoulders when you're going faster than you should be. Okay, so just kind of laying these in. Basic shadows. He is looking this way, and I have the sun coming in from this way, so his shadow is going to be cast this way. Everything on this side of the bike will be dark. Everything on this side of the bike will be light. So I think I'm kind of happy with where it is as of right now, to the point where I could move on and go to the next stage. So again, started off changing the background from white to gray. Started off really loose with a sketch, which is where we are now. Have the body line of the bike here. His shoulder line, his elbows, hands, knees, all that falls where I want it to fall. Some basic shadows dropped in. What I could do to show you guys what I'm going to do on shadows is open up a few more layers. I always open up way more layers than I need so I can work around. But to show you what I'm going to do with shadows, I'll go ahead and drag that. And let me see, I'll do a paint. Low opacity, big brush, but basically these are where the shadows are going to fall. So everything kind of on this side are where the shadows will be. So if you guys could see that, that's what kind of makes sense. But I know you can see, use an iPad to do the drawing. It does pick up the on intricacies. Yeah, it does, Brian. It's It's actually a very powerful tool, and honestly, I wouldn't be where I am professionally without it, because it makes it so easy to kind of get my ideas out very quickly, where I could go and render it to something else. So I turn down the opacity. It lets me know where my shadows are, but I'm going to turn it way down, and then I'm going to take this one and turn this one way down too. So you guys probably won't be able to see it. Yeah, you can see it still. But what I'm going to do now is take a different color, so like a dark blue, a different brush. So I'm going to go with something a little bit different to tighten this up. I want to get my lines way closer to where I want it to be on a different layer. So I have a layer down low and a layer on top of it. And now the layer down low, which was the original red sketch, now has a solid blue layer on top. So I can kind of play around with those. Let me see. What is the biggest thing you struggle with when drawing and painting, etc.? Jody, the biggest thing that I think I struggle with is creativity. A lot of times I feel stagnant because I do so many of these, and I've been doing it for so long. There's only so many ways you could draw a car or a motorcycle, but they still excite me. But I want to make sure that I'm giving my audience of, tens of people or however many people follow me and like my work, I want to make sure that I'm giving them something new to look at. So I struggle with the creativity part of it a lot. Megan, do you have a set color palette, like a set of swatches for certain teams, or do you just wing it? And what app are you using? So Megan, my good friend Megan, who's done all my graphic design work, who I am so happy she's here. I'm using the app called Procreate. It's a weird name, but it fits. Procreate, and I do have swatches, so I'll show you some of my swatches. This is kind of my, let's see if I can move it closer. This color palette swatch is what I use for basically motorsports, because motorsports always seem to have a ton of bright and strong contrasting colors. So these are the ones I always start with. So if I'm going to go with a red, I'll usually pick this red or this slightly softer pink. I always work from here first, but then I have a bunch of other palettes. I have a skin tone palette that I've been creating over the past few years. This is the one you just saw. This one's kind of a softer. This one's pastels. So I'll kind of jump back and forth depending on what it is and what technique I'm trying to use, but mostly I stick with this one and then build off of my disc. So I'll start with a strong blue and then go to a pale blue or a soft blue or powdery blue by moving the color wheel back and forth and picking my dot. There's a bunch of other ways you could use this, but that's the way that I do. So I'm going to go back to finishing, getting this sketch closer to where I want it to be. So you guys know what I'll end up doing is work with this for a while people are watching. And then I will finish rendering this out overnight or tomorrow and post what the full finished version looks like, fully rendered to something like, let me see, looking for a finished one. Something like the Ben Spees that I did the other day. Ben Spees is a Texas-based former MotoGP winner who's actually a really nice guy that I had the opportunity to meet a few years ago. And I actually ride with that helmet, so it's kind of cool to do that drawing. So going back to the Alex Rins, filling out this sketch, what I want to do is make sure that my lines are not exactly where I want them, but I want them to be, I want the weight and the structure to be as solid as I could possibly get them. Yeah, okay. Sorry guys, I just have to look up every once in a while to see if you guys are interacting and try to answer your questions. So thank you guys for chiming in. Hopefully this is not necessarily educational, but at least kind of therapeutic to watch. So one thing I've always liked about MotoGP, Formula One got me into it. It led me into MotoGP, but I love the way that you can see the rider or the driver interact with their machine and how much different their posture, their body, their interaction with their machine can change the way that machine performs. The one that really got me into it was Juan Pablo Montoya. At the time, it was Williams BMW when he came over from Champ Car in the early 2000s. I really like that Juan Pablo Montoya, who is my favorite driver of all time, uh, for better or worse. I really like the way that he leans his head into a corner, and then in Formula One at the time, before the time of the halo, you could see him lean his head into the corner, and he said that that actually helps with his the G forces on his spine as he goes into a corner or coming out of a corner. And before I actually started racing myself, I didn't truly understand that. And then when I started getting into cars that actually had some speed attached to them, leaning your head actually can really, really help. But he did it particularly, and like Max Verstappen, if you guys are familiar with him from Red Bull Racing, he leans his head the opposite way than it should, or the opposite way that I think physics would dictate you would lean your head going into or coming out of a corner. My niece is London, so thanks, London. I appreciate you. So, a rider on a bike is the Juan Pablo Montoya leaning his head thing times 1,000, because you could see their entire body on it. Marco Simoncelli was a very, very big guy comparatively to other riders. Sadly, he passed away in a motorcycle race a few years ago in Malaysia. Partially, I think, because of this, but his body was so big on the motorcycle, he would lose the bike. The bike would start to slide out from under him, and you'd see the bike lose grip at the rear, and he could simply put his knee down and physically lift the bike back up in a way that I've never seen anybody else do. Mark Marquez saves the bike a lot, but Alex could do it with I'm sorry, Marco Simoncelli, super sick, could do it simply with his size. It was sad to see him pass, but it was great to watch him race while we had the chance. Which is again another reason I love motorsports and sports in general, is that you get to see things that you may never happen again. And if you're watching it live or you're physically there, there's a certain strength to that people don't really get over TV. And you can always watch highlights on YouTube and things like that, but there's a beauty to being able to see things happen one and only time and being there. Luckily, this guy came out of it very well, but I remember being at the, oh man, I'm really bad with dates, guys. Sorry about that. Um, the the 2006 Canadian GP, I want to say. Maybe it's 2000. It had to be 2006, 2007, something like that. Basically, the one where Robert Kubica had a horrific accident in his BMW Sauber, when him and I think Tonio Liuzzi, or oh man, um, not Tonio Liuzzi, Jarno Trulli touched wings coming into the hairpin. And if you guys get a chance, look it up. Robert Kubica, Kubica. He had one of the worst wrecks I've ever seen, and it happened to be on the opposite side of the track than I was on, luckily. But his car got ripped in half. His body was flung around. Luckily, he stayed inside the car. You could see his head flopping around. It was a truly horrific wreck. Super, super violent. But he came out of it with a twisted ankle, which was something that it stunned the crowd. We didn't know if he was going to survive or not at the time. And the thing that was so fascinating about it was that when they showed the replay, I think there was about 100,000 people in the stands that day, that Sunday in like '06 or '07. There were so many people in the stands. And when they showed the replay, everybody saw it at the exact same time. And to hear 100,000 people all kind of in unison lose their breath at the sight of this horrific accident was, again, one of those like superhuman moments. Not superhuman as in like Superman, but superhuman as in we are all part of this community. We all react together. I don't speak a word of French, and most of that track, most of the fans there were Quebecois, so there's a lot of French being spoken there. But to feel, you're separated by country, you're separated by language, but to feel that spirit of everybody, all 100,000 people, all at one time, felt for Robert. Everybody wanted him to be okay. Everybody hoped we didn't see the death of a driver, much less anybody. I'm sorry, but since 2008 season ended and F1 cars got gutted with all the power and agility aero, let me see what else she said here. Which sport do you think is most dangerous? I'll come to you in just a second, Jody. Actually, yeah, Jody. So, which sport do I think is most dangerous? As of right now, well, motocross is super dangerous for injuries, not necessarily life threatening because the speeds are low, but your body is so exposed and you're working on 3 dimensions. So you're going through loops and things like that. And a lot of guys break legs and fingers and arms, and occasionally you have a broken neck, which is super tragic. The deaths, I believe, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I believe the deaths are pretty low. As far as pure danger, anything having to do with an oval, especially the super speedway stuff. I believe it was Ryan Newman in NASCAR that got in a horrific accident at the beginning of the season, like one of the few races we actually got to see this year, pre-COVID. He got in a wreck where, there's a lot of people thinking he wouldn't pull through it, rightfully so, because it was really, really bad. But IndyCar always scares me. I love watching IndyCar, but the speeds that they hit, I think at the Indy 500 they're hitting 243 in qualifying day, which is stupid fast. And a lot of times the cars are super safe as themselves, but when you're going that fast, there's only so much you could do with barriers. And Dan Weldon lost his life from, I believe, hitting his head on a pillar as his car left the circuit, which was tragic. And I happened to get to know Dan a little bit. That was really, really nice to meet him before he passed, obviously. But Justin Wilson lost his life from a piece of debris coming into the car. There's just so many people that, are tragically lost. But it's also part of why we love the sport is that there is a real sense of danger that that is not that is always present and that we always hope will not get there. No, I don't know of anybody personally that wants to see anybody get hurt. I do not watch racing for the wrecks. I watch it for the spectacle of seeing machines and people push to the limits and push to the boundaries of what they do. So I do not like seeing wrecks and things like that. All right. Let me catch up with what you said, Kurt. You said, I'm sorry, but since 2008 season ended when the F1 cars got it with all the power and agility, etc., just lost interest. I'm into WC, IMSA, ALMS. Cubica wrecked with truly cool. Thank you. I knew it as an Italian, got the wrong Italian, but thank you for that. And Cubica went straight into the wall. I watched that Canadian GP. So yeah, you're a part of that crowd, man. That was a special moment. I'm so glad he came out. Kuba had lost so much promise. He also lost his arm in a future race and got it reattached. The guy's truly a good sportsman and a good racer. And I'm sorry that his career has been so kind of cursed. He had a real chance of winning the championship that year too. Okay, Michelle Hall. Hello, Michelle. If you had to choose only one media to do for the rest of your life, which would it be? Oils, watercolors, or digital? Man, that's that's a rough one. I think it depends on the time of my life, but since you asked for my life, I would probably say watercolor. I've been doing watercolor consistently since 2008. When I was in college, I didn't really care for it. I didn't, not only did I not care for it, I couldn't control it, which is why I didn't care for it. But watercolors, I feel I could get the richest colors and expression out. Man, I'm leaning towards digital. Yeah, I'm gonna go with watercolors. Just because I like having the tangible fact. I can always print this out when I'm done with this drawing. I can always print it out and get something from it, which is cool. But at the same time, it feels the glass interface kind of gives me a little bit of removal. I'll show you guys since you guys are watching what the difference is. So this is a watercolor that I'm working on now, Mika Hakkinen, and his, again, bad with the years, I want to say 2003, McLaren. I love this stage of a watercolor because I don't know if it's going to be good or not. Right now it has the potential to be good, and I also have the potential to royally screw it up. So you guys probably have no idea how many of these I actually screw up on a regular basis. So this one has the potential to still be good. You could see the sketch, you could see where I'm putting highlights, where reds are going to be, where darks are going to be, kind of the natural thing. One of the things I always try to make sure that I do is make sure that I'm not making the tires black. Tires are almost never really black if you look at them in any type of detail when you're outside. Tires always have like a natural brownish gray to them, so I always try to capture that and make sure that the deep shadows of inside the nose of the car is super black, but I want that to contrast off the tires. So at this stage, I'm at that area where I have not screwed it up yet, but I can still get there. Hey, Vinny, good to see you. So yeah, you guys can now see that this Alex Rins is getting closer. Things are just kind of fleshing out. I use kind of I actually was getting on some kids that I was tutoring the other day. I'm doing things that you should not be doing, but because it's a sketch, it's okay. I always say don't move in W's. Don't do that. You always want to pull. You want to do lines the same way. You want to make sure that you're building that way. And when you do W's, it gives you heavy spots. And right now, because I'm just sketching, actually, I'll just go back and erase those. So that's the cool thing about digital is I can just erase and it just goes away and nobody ever has to know. So you can see here, the thing is way closer to being fleshed out. I need to get his colors starting to get laid in and logos. Again, because I'm going to finish this, guys, when you guys are not around, when I'm just sitting on my couch watching what I would usually say, watching sport, but it's not going to happen on this one because sport doesn't exist thanks to COVID. So I'm just kind of fleshing this out, making sure I know where heavy spots are, where elbows are, where everything is. So you can see, let me see, already, Farrell bought this stage. Thanks, Taylor, but I would disagree. I am never happy. Feel free to for me to scrap to me. Mike, I could do that for you. I think you'll be severely disappointed in my scrap if you're anything like me. So there are tons of finished paintings that I've spent probably, anywhere between 30 and 40 hours painting over the course of a year or whatever that I just never finish or am never happy with to even publish. So I try to be my own best editor, but that also makes me my own worst critic. Wait, I hope I'm my own worst critic. I hope you guys aren't my own worst critic because that would suck. So yeah, so now you see the drawing kind of almost fleshed out. What I'm going to do now is reduce that opacity again because I am way happier with where the blue lines are than where the red lines are. It's far more finished. So the next thing I'm going to do is switch to a black for a pure outline, switch to a calligraphic pen, a script pen, because it lets me have very smooth flowing lines. So because I'm on another layer, I could do this. So this one lets me kind of have a smooth flow like that rather than being choppy. So because I have it set to a smooth flow, I could do outlines very simply. I leave the opacity all the way up so it's a solid thick line and then turn the size of it really far down. It's been super fun to watch you work over the last 15 years from the Kimi in '05 and the McLaren to see, let me see, watercolor of him in the Ferrari. Thanks, Jody. Yeah, it's good to see my stuff evolve for me. It makes me hate my old stuff because I'm, again, a very heavy critic of my own, hopefully. But hopefully, what it means to me is that I am always learning. And hopefully, every drawing, every painting that I do makes me better at the next one. That's my hope at every turn. But it's really hard to keep that momentum up. And luckily, during the time of COVID, it's been kind of a solace for me to be able to kind of retreat into one of my two studios. I do watercolor and digital stuff in here, and then I have an oil painting studio on the other side of the wall. But it's really been rewarding for me to be able to just kind of come in here and lose myself for literally, anywhere between 30 minutes and 10 hours depending on how my day looks. But to not have to worry about things while I'm in here. I don't think about bills. I don't think about COVID, don't think about mortality, don't think about anything. I'm just in here usually listening to a podcast by myself and letting the time go by. And I love being able to turn myself off to that degree where I could just exist in this space and not have to worry about things. It's pretty rare where I don't have anything going on. COVID has helped with that. But a lot of times just being able to not have an agenda, to not have a time, I could just come in here and do what I want to do for as long as I need to, whether it's a commission piece or just a piece that I'm doing for myself. It's really fulfilling to be able to do that in this space and kind of lose myself to the world. You guys could probably see, you see TV there. I listen to podcasts. Let me see, Taylor. What kind of podcast? Man, everything. I listen to a lot of movie podcasts. I love really really good storytelling, and I love knowing details of how movies and other forms of art are made. Listen to a lot of science podcasts, a lot of political podcasts, things like that, to just kind of keep my brain engaged. Those of you on here that know me personally know that when I like to create, I actually like to turn my brain off. So that's why I'm able to talk to you guys as I go, because I like to turn my brain off and let it do what it thinks it needs to do, which is what I call the muscle memory part of my job. So I don't think about, oh, I need to put another line here or do another thing here. I just let my hand do it. And that comes from years and years and years of fighting and getting to where I am now, which is nowhere where I want to be. And I keep screwing that up. But I get closer every day. So let me see. Cool about the technology. Can you use to get your finished products as Orthodox Christian? I wonder if this is let me see. Iconographers using other techniques to make icons. That's a good question, Taylor. I actually studied Italian Renaissance art in college. I lived in Florence, Italy, and still have some really, really good friends from that era of my life back in 2001. Lived in Florence, Italy, and studied Italian Renaissance art. And that I think that does have a lot of influence in what I do on a regular basis. It's hard to say from the inside looking out, but I definitely know that the masters of Italian Renaissance, all the Ninja Turtles, have a huge influence in what I create. I say all the Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, all those guys, Botticelli, which was not a Ninja Turtle, but still fun. All of those guys were, just such leaders in the field of, it's hard to even call it art back then because it's almost, it was state owned and state run, but so ingenious at everything they did, and just truly world beaters in what they could do and what they created that we still use. I mean, the fact that blue didn't really exist as a good color as far as painters and stuff go until Della Robbia blue was created in Italy. That a deep, rich blue, which this bike is going to be. The fact that that didn't exist until just before the Italian Renaissance was crazy. Roxy, how many layers right now? I think I'm using 4 layers. It will probably end up being, man, I don't really count. Let me go back and look at the. Okay, here's one I did for a friend. Did a drawing of his grandson, a kid named Jet Boyd, who is a Valentino Rossi fan. So this one, Roxy, this one has There's 33 layers shown. Probably about 25 are actually being used. Some are sketches that I get rid of and things like that. But to actually get to this, to get to this final image, is about 25 layers. Let me go back to our Alex. So as you guys could see, let me scroll down, make sure. Um, so as you guys could see, I'm laying in the heavy lines, basically the outline. If you think of like a Disney cartoon, where the outline of the body would be. When I paint, I actually don't use outlines. When I draw, I do use outlines. When I paint, I like to show the form of something rolling around. When you're drawing the arm, in reality, it's not this line and this line. It's actually you have a highlighted shadow from underneath. You have the structure going around the arm that you try to show, and it's very that's the fun part of painting to me, is to show that form and structure rolling around a body of existence, that in the cartoon form I actually try to not eliminate, but to simplify for the sake of simplification. I like to get to the fewest lines to get to the size and shape of what I'm drawing. So in just a second, guys, I'm going to finish up this hand, and I'm going to move to the next phase of what I always like is the filling in of color. So get his body down, get those shapes, get his foot down behind, and you can see I'm putting in deep blacks, the deepest part of the shadows. MotoGP bikes now have these. Well, I don't like these goofy wings all over them. I like the more pure bikes of a few years ago that didn't have so many wings and flip ups and things like that. F1 went through the same thing of just flugal horns and flip ups all over the place. They get really annoying, especially when you have to draw them. The front wings of F1 a few years ago were a nightmare to draw. The new ones are way simpler, but I think uh, physically too big for the structure of the cars. Okay, so I'm gonna move on past this stage. I have everything kind of set in. There's some details I'll come back and clean up, but for the sake of this Facebook Live, let me see, come and clean that up. I'm gonna move on to a layer below all these layers. I'm gonna turn off my sketches. So you can see this is basically what I'm left with with just the outlines. So I'm gonna fill this in, which is kind of the fun part. Fill this in with the Suzuki blue, which is kind of a rich blue like we are talking about before. So I picked a blue that I normally would use, which would be this one. Then I know it's darker, a little bit richer, so move it over on the color palette a little bit. Turn up my opacity to all the way. Turn up my brush size so I can fill up this space, and then just kind of go to town on it. So it's not all going to be blue. It's way easier to come back and correct it than it is anything else. So fill it all in. I know where the blue's going to go. I know where the tires are going to go. His leathers are going to be a very similar blue. His helmet actually doesn't have that much blue in it. I'll turn on the layers again here in a second so I can see where I'm going. It's weird. He wears a combination of oranges and reds, which is kind of hard because oranges and reds are right next to each other on the color palette, and it's kind of confusing to the eye at first. So here's everything laid out in blues. So you could see basically the space of it. Now I'll go back through and pick a color for the tires that's a dark gray. Go ahead and color those. You'll start to see how this thing gets filled in. Visor for right now will be a dark gray. Again, I could color outside the lines. I'm going to come back and clean this stuff up. I know other people do it other ways, but that works for me. That strong red that Megan asked about earlier for his gloves. The two outside gloves are always kind of pushed together, or outside fingers of the glove are pushed together. That is a safety thing. If you ride, when you ride, you don't. If you fall, you don't want your hands to spread out and potentially get damaged. So you always the racing style gloves always have the pinky and the ring finger together, so that you have the strength. Your pinky doesn't get outside of where it should be. Which of your pieces over the years have made the biggest lasting impact of you? Jules, Nikki. Um, that's a really good question, Jody, because I don't know. I've had some really interesting stories come from my events, but yeah, I would have to say the Jules. This is a story. I guess it's semi public because there's so many people involved with it, but it has not been written up or shared in general. But I have a friend that is friends with the Team Ferrari, and some of you on here know who Jules Bianchi is, some of you don't. So I'll give you a quick rundown. Jules Bianchi was a driver for the Ferrari Young Driver Academy, racing in Formula One. He was in a lower team, Marussia, at the time, and sadly, he hit a tractor that was removing another car from a race in Japan years ago, and went into a coma and was in a medically induced coma for almost a year, I believe, and sadly he lost his life. While he was still in the coma, Formula One went from Japan to the United States, and I had enough time to create a Jules Bianchi painting, a watercolor, and it's called "Tu avec Jules," which means "we are with you, Jules." I think because I don't speak French, but I'll switch this up. Jules was a young Ferrari driver. Lost while he was in the hospital. I did the painting for him, and it was truly for him. So I created it, and luckily my friend that was friends with the Ferrari, with Team Ferrari, helped me get into the paddock and into a bunch of different places around F1. I took the painting with me around Austin that year and had a bunch of people sign it and write notes and well wishes to Jules while he was in his coma. Um, a lot of guys, if you're familiar with the sport, Jensen Button, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen, a lot of really good people, Christian Horner, Sebastian Vettel, um, a bunch of guys signed it, wrote him nice notes and well wishes while he was in hospital. I then took it and got it framed and worked with Team Ferrari and sent it off to them, sent it to Italy as a signed finished piece and nice frame and all that. And it was just something I felt that I could do to give back to the sport, because I love the sport, and these guys are out there risking their lives for literally my entertainment, not just mine but everybody's. So it was really, it feels like something small I could do, something I feel passionate about, and hopefully that it gives back to the community. Um, so at that time, I sent it to Ferrari, and then I got a note from them saying that it went to Jules's father. I'm not sure what his first name is, but Bianchi, Mr. Bianchi. Um, and apparently he took that painting and had it up in Jules's room until the day that he passed. So the father was very grateful and wrote me a nice note and said thank you for sending it, and it means a lot to us. And it was kind of watching over Jules as he rested before he passed away. So that one, I don't think about it very much because it's so it's heavy, and kind of not fun to think about how mortal these guys are. So yeah, I would say the Jules Bianchi piece is probably my most impact on me, Jody. So I'll go back to this, keep drawing for a bit. I'm almost up at an hour, guys. So if you guys have any more questions, hit me up. I'm gonna keep drawing for a little bit longer, and then later on you'll see me post it. So yeah, anything else you guys have, just let me know. Until then, I'll keep drawing. So you can see here, I don't think I've ever talked for an hour straight. I'm probably gonna just take a nap after this is over. I'm going through and kind of cleaning up these lines in general. It's probably a little bit too early. I'm going to turn the sketch back on so that I could see the colors of where I wanted stuff to land as far as his sports stripes and things, or racing stripes. Make sure things kind of fall where I'd originally put them. So you could see it start to take shape, hopefully. I always do a base layer of where logos and things are going to be. Logos are always such a pain because if you get them wrong, they're super noticeable. If you get them right, nobody cares unless they're paying you to get them right, which sometimes happens. But super precise. I'm not a graphic designer, so it makes it very hard for me to, or it doesn't make it very hard. It just is hard for me to make sure that I'm paying respect to the other graphic designers out there like Megan that put so much work into a typeface or a branding exercise. So let's see. He's got white gloves on the other parts of his fingers. His forefinger and his middle finger. Uh, Dark knuckles. And then back to white. Procreate gives you a really nice tool that you could use where I could go to my palette and it gives me my recent colors, but I could also just do a eye picker and pick the color. Whenever you have a sketch underneath, it's a little bit different, a little bit more difficult than that, but not too bad. The fun part with the digital thing is that whenever you run into the windshield, in this particular case, that hump, there's some tricks I'll do later on to kind of show the opacity or the lack of opacity in that helmet, or in the to show the transfer over. So, do you like sim racing? Yeah, so I'm getting there. I actually play a lot of Project Cars 2. I used to play a lot of Forza, not so much, and I drive the F1 game. Obviously, I have a Thrustmaster wheel and a and pedal setup that I've kind of rigged up this seat that I really enjoy. I actually have to be very careful on sim racing, Davey, because I could just do it for hours. I'm thinking about upgrading a system to get into iRacing, just because I'd like to race a different variety of stuff. But I do really, really enjoy it, and it's really, really addicting, and could get me in trouble. So I just got to be careful. Not actual trouble, just I got stuff to do, and and it's too much fun to keep doing sim racing. So that is my clean underlying sketch. I'm gonna fill this in, keep going on it, but I just wanted to give everybody a chance to see what I do. This is my studio, my watercolor studio, and my digital studio. So I work in here. I see Davey. Thanks for chiming in, Davey. Um, so yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been just at an hour. So I will do this again if you guys have good feedback. Always, I love hearing from you guys to let me know what you think, because I'm literally just in a dark room talking to nobody other than you guys digitally on the screen. So thank you for your time. And if you have anything for me, hit me up on Facebook Live, on Instagram, Twitter. I'm on all the social medias. Probably not TikTok. Yeah, I'm too old. I don't know what TikTok is. But yeah, I love hearing from you guys. I love feedback. So if you guys have anything for me, I'll keep creating. Got watercolors all day. Got oils that I'm working on. During this time of COVID, I have a lot of time to dedicate to getting things knocked out. So thanks, guys. And Mark, good to see you. Hopefully, I'll see you at Coda in a few months. Hopefully, we get this racing season going back when the time is right and everybody's safe and healthy. So hope you guys are all, again, everybody take care of yourself, take care of your family. Times are tough right now. The whole reason I'm doing this is COVID. I don't really go out and share too much about what I'm creating, just because I don't think anybody really is paying attention. So if you guys have feedback, this time of COVID is making it more possible. I'm trying to put out good stuff, trying to put out stuff so that people can stay entertained and ask questions and be interactive, even in the time of social distancing. What is it? I like the term physical distancing more than social distancing because, socially, we're all social animals and as humans, and we need each other. So take care of each other, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and thank you guys. Can't wait to see the finished piece. Yeah, Megan, neither can I. I got a lot of work to do, and love your work. Congrats. Thanks, Federico. I will see you guys soon. If you want me to do this again, let me know. Let your friends know. I'm happy to do it. Just want to put some good out into the world. So thanks, guys.